Hi, Tammy Davis. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you're here, you clearly are interested in essential oils, maybe even more about the essential oil of lemon and what I might have to say about it. I will say that I'm not going to go into great detail here just because, well, it would be hours long. However, I will write some more information on this and post it in my Patreon. On my Patreon site. This is kind of like I want to share this because I've been known to speak about essential oil of lemon and dopamine levels for a number of years now. And over the last couple of years, my practice and application of essential oils and the use of aromatherapy as a lifestyle has really been altered as a result of my ongoing private practice and research with relation to the pharmacological studies of plant constituents in drug development. So this really, it goes rather deep, and so bear with me. And I kind of got a little thrown off if there was a truck that just drove by that made an awful lot of noise, and I get nervous thinking maybe that'll show up in the video. So at any rate, like I said, this is about lemon and the way its influence on dopamine. And I've been talking an awful lot about dopamine and addiction and other mental health issues. And before jumping into all of that, I also want to point out that the National Institute of Health is not really able, they've done some reports on the efficacy of neurotransmitter tests. I've worked in clinics where they were conducting these neurotransmitter urine tests. A lot of the times the clinicians weren't even suggesting that the clients were coming off of their medications, primarily their anxiolytics and or antidepressants. There's a lot of actually medications that would alter the test results. But the point that I'm getting at is that there is no concrete evidence to say that these urine tests are able to firmly represent neurotransmitter levels. And the reason I'm saying that is because we've come at our health from a very conventional model, which is all about controlling. It's about pinpointing the issue and then trying to influence it one way or the other. So when I say control, it's not about 100% activation. It's influencing the activity. So sometimes medications actually deactivate, and other times they activate. So it's a very targeted mechanism of action. And a lot of these understandings about how to do this with medication stems from the study of plant constituents, as I mentioned a little while ago. In this case, lemon oil has been found to actually affect the regulation of dopamine, and I don't necessarily recommend it for, when I was talking about it, before I get into that, when I initially was doing a lot of this work, with regards to genetics and so forth, I was very ingrained in the conventional model, is how I want to say that. And of course, when somebody presents with a neurotransmitter test that says their dopamine levels are very low, then of course I was suggesting we don't use lemon oil, because lemon essential oil will offset, will actually increase the low levels. And so, because lemon, like I said, actually will slow down dopamine levels. And I don't want to say slow, it just it regulates it. It kind of reduces the level of dopamine in the brain. And that's really significant, especially when you're dealing with Parkinson's and things like that. So there are times when this very targeted use of medications and oils is helpful. When you actually have a full-blown diagnosis. This is the reason why I mentioned the neurotransmitter tests earlier, because what these urine tests are supposedly testing is extracellular which means neurotransmitters that are outside the cell, so extracellular levels. And so if, in my opinion, pardon me, if the levels are low in the urine test, then that would mean that they're high in the brain or in the cells. And again, our conventional way of thinking about things is, well, if it's too high in one place, then we want to reduce it, right? Well, that's where I've shifted, because no, you don't. I've learned that the body is actually responding to the world and the environment and our mental and emotional state on an ongoing basis. Like every nanosecond that we are still alive and breathing, our body is responding to the world around. So it is actually self-regulating. Our job is not to try and guess where it is on that scale and try to intervene. So, this gets kind of maybe kind of seems a little complicated when we're working with oils. And it's essential, especially essential when you're working with including medications, to understand that certain oils like lemon do affect the brain chemistry. And while that has a lot of validity, if you are using medication that is increasing increasing your dopamine levels, the last thing you want to be doing is throwing something in there that's going to upset it. So this is a very important piece to all essential oils, not just lemon. I'm talking about lemon in particular because, like I said, and with this one individual's case, she happens to be a longtime friend and client. And so she presented me with this question the other day, and I thought this would be something that not only would benefit her, but would benefit everyone, because we have to understand that these oils, like I said, a lot of them are influencing our brain chemistry. And so this would be another reason why ongoing use of this same oil is not advisable. Not to mention the fact, yes, I realize that lemon it's antiviral, antibacterial, it's a diuretic. It actually helps to decongest the liver. And it also is very drying. It's a mild, it'll dry the skin out. So it's almost like a really great, cleanser for the face if you have extra oily skin, because it'll mildly dry the skin. The constituents in there balance it out. If citral wasn't in it, then it would be a stronger drying agent, but it's because the citral actually balances it out. So that's the really great thing about oils, is the way that they are made in nature. They have these qualities to them that nature provides. That said, when oils become adulterated, we'll see an increase in irritation, and we won't see as much of a balance within the oil. And these are the things that I get into on Patreon. But in the case of lemon, it has, in its natural, most genuine and authentic state, it has the ability to mildly dry the skin. But that said, everything that I've just mentioned is only recommended on short-term, pardon me, on a short-term basis. So, if you used it today and then maybe, diffused it in the air next week, those things would be okay. So again, like I've talked about with lavender, short-term use of these oils has good benefit. Everyday use, incorporation, because it is a diuretic or because it's cold and flu season, isn't recommended for the reasons I've already stated, which is with regards to its influence on the brain chemistry. And especially if your family, or in your family, there's a predisposition to such things as Parkinson's, or there's medications involved, then it would be advisable to not use lemon. There are other alternatives. In addition to, the drying qualities, it is also very photosensitive. So if you were going to use lemon on your face, then you don't want to go outside in the sunshine for at least 8 hours. So again, it's not it's not a really suitable astringent for the face. For those reasons. So lemon, for as yummy as it is, and this isn't lemon juice, this is lemon oil. So lemon oil comes from the rind itself, so you're going to get it on your hands, and you're going to absorb it. In fact, I want to make mention of that. I've talked about it in other videos, but if this is your first time watching, thank you for joining me. And just want to say that application of essential oils is easy and it's effective, for as difficult as it is for us to wrap our heads around. We don't need to be taking them internally. We don't need to be putting them in drinking water. A couple of things about essential oils. The molecules are very small, so they are readily absorbed through the skin and dispersed throughout the system, unlike a medication that has to be broken down. And number two, they're lipophilic, which means that they are attracted to oil and fat. So that would be the oil in your skin, and the fatty tissue underneath would actually pull it in. And of course, the blood tissue actually has, it has oils and fats in it too. That's part of our makeup. And so we have the structure to actually absorb and disperse. It's a great technology, delivery system. Let me say it that way. It's a great delivery system. You don't need to add anything to it. I mean, yes, there are certain oils that you want to put a carrier with, such as an oil, to help reduce or protect from irritation. So that said, we have our own delivery system. There's no need to ingest them. If internal use is required due to, I would say, if in the case of lemon, if you're dealing with some significant liver concerns, the internal use of lemon would be good. You could actually create little suppositories and insert them rectally. That would be a way to take them internally. I'll get to the reason why we don't want to swallow them in a moment. Or you could put the lemon water in the bath. And again, the oils don't mix well with the water, but it will actually be drawn to the skin, be absorbed through the skin as well as through the rectum, and it's another rapid delivery system straight into the bloodstream. So those would be two ways rather, or inhalation would make it three. So skin inhalation, because the nose is an extension of the brain, as well as taking a bath or inserting them rectally. As far as taking them by mouth, the challenge is that there's acid and there's other fluids and that would preempt the oils from really being absorbed. And so by the time they got into the small intestine, they would be then absorbed, drawn into the liver, which then would turn them into would take them through the metabolism process. Essential oils are already secondary metabolites. What that means is that they are produced through the plant's metabolism. If you break them down in the liver, you're not getting the full benefit of the oil. So you've really reduced the amount of absorption and use of the oils when you take them internally. And they could very well cause an upset stomach because they are not being used by the system. So again, we don't have to lack the trust that the body can take it in and use it. And of course, always recommend the genuine and authentic versions of your oils. And the way you would know that is to be able to get some testing that's provided with the oils upon request that would help you to determine the quality of your oils. Therapeutic is not a quality, it is just a term that is used, and I've said this before. If anything creates a physiological change, then it's considered therapeutic. So, I mean, if we were to take a chemical that's poisonous, it's going to cause a physiological change. And I don't think by definition, the way we understand therapeutic, that would be therapeutic. So essential oils do have the ability strong ability to modify and affect the way the body works. And this is another reason why it's really essential to understand the medications that you're using and why such things as lemon aren't always recommended for different types of medications or paired with different types of medications. As far as anything else is concerned, I'm just thinking about other things that I've talked about recently with regards to estrogen and dopamine and the stress response. What I want to say is just exercise caution with lemon. That's how I want to say it. I was going to go down another road, and that would have been more of my old mindset, more along the lines of the conventional mindset, which is trying to regulate chemistry with very specific essential oils. So that's not the goal here. The goal here is to actually stabilize the body. So using oils mindfully and intermittently, not on an ongoing basis. It's not about, again, we already know that the stress response is activated. How that plays out depends on the individual genome. To go in there and try to use an oil to regulate, how I want to say that is like this. So, as I mentioned earlier, medications have a targeted mechanism of action. So that means that they have very specific activities that they are to carry out in the body. There's no way of knowing how any one individual is going to fully respond to these medications and the reason why that is because it's impossible to map out a genetic reaction. Because keep in mind, estrogen, for instance, activates a number of sequences, genetic activity. So it activates a number of activities within the system. So our own hormones can do this. And so when one switch is flipped, another one gets adjusted. Another good example of this is the angiotensin II receptor. Angiotensin, if you're not familiar with this, is one of the hormones that the body uses to activate to begin to elevate blood pressure. This is in the event of a stressful reaction. So this is what gets the blood going and increases the blood pressure. Now, it's supposed to be turned off, but that said, when the angiotensin II receptor is activated and it starts this process of increasing our blood pressure, there's another gene that is deactivated. Now, that particular gene, I think it's the DDP, forgive me, I'll have to look it up on my notes and then I'll insert it in the description box. But the point of that is that angiotensin II receptor being activated turns off another gene sequence that is known for its use in metabolizing casein and gluten. How many people do we know that have gluten and casein sensitivities? And this equals into, not just blood pressure and food sensitivities and autoimmune challenges. It also plays into a lot of mental health issues, such as schizophrenia and autism. So the point to any of that, though, is to highlight the fact that one gene, when activated, will begin another sequence of activity. This is the reason why it's impossible to know how a medication will what the body will do fully when taking a medication. So the same can actually be said for oils. If you are using oils on a regular basis, you are, as part of your lifestyle, if you're using oils, it's just like a medication. It's just like any other chemical that you add to the body. It is causing the body to respond. As I mentioned at the beginning, the body is responding at every second that we're here. Every nanosecond, it is responding to something. So if you throw something in there, you smell something, the switches are going to be activated, and it's impossible to actually know fully how you are going to affect your system. So the idea of control is an illusion. Therefore, helping to stabilize the body and recognizing that certain oils have a very strong influence on their neurochemistry, and beginning to select oils that kind of ground and strengthen and calm and soothe, and knowing what's going on with your individual body is what's most important. I can't make recommendations here because not everybody's going to respond to the oils in the same way. I was speaking with somebody yesterday, and we were talking about oils, and she was telling me that she goes out online and she does all this research on oils. So she was, she knew what I was going to be providing her. But what I can honestly say is, the information that's out there is limited at best. And if you actually get some quality information on the oils, you will actually see warnings. You won't see that everything is good for everyone. And those are the ones, if you're going to pay attention to anything you find online, those are the ones I would pay attention to. Not every oil is good for everyone. Somebody could very well have an adverse reaction to it. The reason why is not because they're allergic to it. It's because the body and their gene sequence has been activated in a certain way that doesn't allow for that oil to contribute at this point. That may not always be the case. But paying attention to your body and not getting freaked out by the way it's reacting to something is essential. And so therefore, in this case, lemon is good on an infrequent basis, and knowing that, if you're trying to prevent colds, or you got a cold, or, the other thing I wanted to say is it's as with any oil, there is almost like a cumulative effect, because as I just mentioned, it has the ability to activate and deactivate certain activities within the system, right? Well, that doesn't mean you have to dump a lot on the body. It doesn't mean you have to slather it on. It just means you need to use a little bit, maybe for a couple of days, and then stop, depending on what you're dealing with, and knowing that you've already set the ball in motion and that your body will react. Now, if it doesn't react the way you'd like it to, then use a little bit more, but use it sparingly. This is how less is actually more. You have to understand, I can't emphasize this enough, lemon, like a number of other oils, influence the brain chemistry. And so it's not our job to regulate our chemistry. Our job is to provide stabilization to a very hypersensitive body. It's very sensitive to the world around it. And so our job is to keep it kind of calm and soothed. And the way to do that is to know your system. Now, as I've also mentioned, I do have a Patreon membership. It's $3 a month for just basic information like this. Well, I shouldn't say basic, but just generalized information like this on oils. And then, as I mentioned also, too, I'm going to be doing a write-up on more about this. That may come after sometime next week, just because Christmas is coming up and I'm getting ready to go away. That said, if you want more specific information about yourself, then that's a $10 a month membership. And there's no contract. You can stick with it for 1 month. You can hang with us for 6 months, however you like to do it. But this does become an interactive community where people share, and we can just create an ongoing class around how to make aromatherapy and essential oils a lifestyle that supports everything that we're doing, that does not take the place of anything, but allows and is fluid. No pun intended. So thanks again for joining me. If you have any additional questions about lemon, feel free to ask me. And like I said, I will be posting something on Patreon that kind of backs up what I've said here and adds to it. All right. Thanks again for watching. And yeah, I'll make that note of that gene in the description box below. Take care and have a wonderful holiday.